Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our transgressions, as we forgive those who are transgressing against us. And lead us while being in temptation. Deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Absolute infinite beingness, God. Everlasting life, love, and mercy. Lighten our minds to understand you as the truth. You are manifesting yourself in yourself as your total wisdom and your almightiness. Clean our hearts to reflect your love towards you and towards all other human beings. Amen. Many people in the past, wise people, wanted just to know the truth. What is life? Who is man as a human being on the planet? What is life in the manifestations of life, in all the phenomena of life all around us? Yes, these were the wise ones. Very few. Most of the people at all times had different things to engage themselves and their minds with. The illusions. Just the way they were living. Living subconsciously under the impulses of their time and place, let us call it self. Why not self? And we call it self because in reality it is the reflection of the self and not the self. It is that reflection on the mirrors of matter, that image in the mirrors of matter, emotion, and thought, the mind, that we make the mistake to think that it is ourself, which is not. So, if you ask any man, any person, man, male or female, around you, what's life? The only thing he will say, I am living, that is what I know, that I am living. Yes, but tell me what's life? They cannot say. Then we ask something else. Instinctively, people believe out of necessity to the existence of a God. Why? How did this idea about the existence of a God or gods came to the human beings? We said out of necessity. During the past, from the time of the cavemen, the human beings were facing many, many dangers. They were feeling that they couldn't cope with life alone. They wanted to find something or somebody to help them superior to their power of just to cope with life. So that necessity made the human beings create gods of their own imagination. And studying just this matter in the past, we find out that human beings at all times, in all periods, of time have created such gods which were having their own characteristics, their cruelty, their virtues, their vices, everything. Now, while studying these things, we'll find it out. And we'll understand by the gods, these peoples, on certain periods of time they are worshipping, are reflecting their own character, their own way of living. But what is interesting us is not the gods. The gods. The stuff they are made of is the same. Of all the gods who have existed during all the time in the period. But the gods are different now. Different names, they get names. They give them names. And the way they needed them to help them. Of course, now we know what were those gods. And I'm asking you, did these gods in the past, all these gods, all over the world, in all the periods and in all the places on the planet, did they exist? How many are these gods? Thousands of gods. Some we know, the names, some we don't know. Did they exist? I'm telling you, yes. They do exist even now. They existed and they exist. What were those gods? Mind. Shaped, taking the form and the characteristics of those creating them. Now we know, because now we know what is the mind as super substance. It's one of the studies a seeker of the truth must engage himself with to know what is the mind. It's another branch of study. But we know that subconsciously the human being on the planet all the time, from the primitive man of the caves living, was using the mind subconsciously without knowing it. You say now, are people now not using again the mind subconsciously? I say 80% of their life is subconscious, which they call it waking life, but not self-conscious life. Now, we said, we live. Nobody can deny that he is living, breathing, walking, under the same needs just to keep the material body alive. This is the instinct. We call that instinctive consciousness. Many human beings are living. That's life. The phenomenon of life, human being is one of the billions and billions and billions of the phenomena of life on the planet. But what's the difference between a human being and all the other phenomena of life around us on the planet? It's life. We said yesterday that the rocks are living, the crystals are living. What science says inorganic matter is living. It's undergoing certain changes. Then we have from that inorganic matter, what call it matter. In reality it is mind solid. We see the elements, water and all other things, and then there is life in them. There is life in the water, in the seas, in the lakes, in the oceans, everywhere there is life. Then I see life on the land. Billions and billions and billions of phenomena of life in the vegetable kingdom. we said we have also life in the animal kingdom. Again, billions of phenomena of life. But what is the place of a human being in all this phenomena of life? What we are like all the other phenomena of life, and what we are different from the other phenomena of life. What are the similarities? Now this is something a seeker of the truth has, by observation and using the mind in the right way, meditation, to reach at least the relative truth for the time being, which means that the human being can use the mind in a different way than the other phenomena of life around him are using the mind. Though subconsciously he is doing that, he expresses a kind of self, time and place space self, which the animals around us are not using, are not expressing. So they are living, they are expressing life. They are just expressing not a kind of self, but a kind of living existence. Now, what are the things that are common between us and all the other animal life and vegetable life? All phenomena of life, to exist, now we enter in the world of existence, should definitely have a form. Nothing can exist without having its own form. Not one form. There are billions and billions and billions of forms. An ant, a worm, a plant, a nice flower, an animal, any kind of animal, everywhere. To exist should have a form and get a name. A name. Who is giving this a name? When I say having a name, I don't mean the name we are giving to that phenomenon of life. Its name is different from that phenomenon of life having a name, because names are words, sounds, and for something, different people are giving different words. Water, Nero, Moya, Aqua, it's the same thing. Yet the name is different. But what is the real name of everything having a form? It's vibrations. And not these sounds we are using just to give a name to the things. So nothing in nature has its proper name. You are giving it a name. But of course, everybody seeing a glass of water, doesn't matter if an Englishman will say, oh, it's water. They'll say, no, aqua. They'll say, Nero. What is just the impressions giving water to a human being? That's its name. The vibrations and the ability of knowing and understanding what it is. So, for everything, we should enter in the meaning of that thing, and not simply in the words used by certain people for something. Now, what's the name? Not in words, but in reality, common to everything around us. The meaning given to us with the words we are using, meaning life. Even for that, we are using different words. So, I'm asking you now, what is life? Can you understand what's life? To understand, yes. To know, not yet. But we can know sometime. For the time being, that petty kind of self, each one of us is expressing, making the mistake to think that it is ourself, cannot know great truths. But even so, the heart of our time and place-based petty self is the self. Now, we'll study more deeply the problem. If I have 20 people here, men and women, and ask them, who are you? Everybody will give me the correct answer, veiled with an illusion. Which is the correct answer? When I ask somebody, who are you? He says, I am George. The other, I am Peter. The other, no, I am Alex. I am Mary. I am Helen. I laughed and I said, yes. You started well, finishing with an illusion. Everybody said, I am. That's your name. That's what you are. The other is artificial. You may say, I'm a man, I'm a male person, I am a woman. Even so, these are characteristics of the phenomenon of life of a human being on the planet now, today. We'll study why it has been a man and a woman. Then looking around in nature, I see these two kinds of the nature of life. I can see it in the animals, male and female. I can see it in plants. I can see it everywhere. Now it's another branch of study. Why? This is why one said, just to have a manifestation of life as a phenomenon, I must have the two, let us call them poles. They say positive and negative. No, positive and counter-positive. They are not negative. It is a wrong expression. Positive and counter-positive. And then it continues again, just in great numbers, and when you see it, what is positive is the counter-positive of something further and before it. And then when you go there, the positive becomes counter-positive. So it's positive in a different expression. But I have now what I call the duality. I'm afraid I'm not allowed to speak more about this duality because we enter to the divine mathematics, and if one knows much, he can even make materializations and dematerializations. So I'll stop to this point. What I can say is that the law of duality is necessary for the manifestation of the phenomenon of life and maybe the creativeness in it. Maybe. Now, we are living on the planet, being either a man or a woman, having the attraction, live this common life, union, and making a family and children. This you can find it in all the countries, all around the planet, in the world. So we'll study what we call general things and behavior in life, but we shall start to understand what is life. Life is far different to what I call way of living. What we have common is life. But we have the way of living, which is very different. The way of living of the one person from the other, of a man from another man, of a woman from another woman. So, a seeker of the truth is studying all these things by observation and right thinking and meditation, which means that a human being is different from other phenomena of life around us. Just lambs and cows and dogs are living, but they never engage. They are phenomenon of life, don't call it self, with these problems. All dogs are living. Animals are living their own life. They don't care and they don't bother about what is life. But the human being now faces different problems. Who am I? What am I? Which means this, just I call it, tendency of knowing, of using better the supersubstance of the mind, which is not the mind ourselves, it is the means we will use, is giving certain characteristics to this form of life I call a human being, which is leading us to the same conclusions always, to the conclusions all these wise ones have come to through the centuries. To understand what is self. Now this is a very, very difficult problem and matter to deal with. What's the self? And why it is difficult? Because human beings make the mistake to think as themselves, their own self, their reflection on the mirrors of the mind as matter, emotion and thought. So it needs just much observation and hard thinking, deep thinking to find out, but who am I? Am I that reflection or I am something else? Reflecting a kind of time and place self on these mirrors of the mind. I call material body, psychic body, body of emotions, the noetical body, the body of thoughts. If I tell you, yes, you make the mistake to think that these mirrors is yourself. Shall you accept it? Many are willing to accept it. When they say I, they show on their material body, and they think that their material body is self. Now we say, how do we come out of this labyrinth, of this maze of illusions? By breaking the mirrors. God is doing it every few years for us, to wake us up. You are not what you think you are. But slowly, slowly, slowly to understand that we are the real self, and we have just to take out from ourself what we think it's ourself, the things we are covering ourselves with. Nobody is ready now, living in a material body, to accept that he is not the material body, and that kind of self expressed as emotions and thoughts. Yet this is the truth. So, what is the work of a seeker of the truth? To start studying its image, the reflection in the mirrors. Study the material body. Study the emotions. Everybody his own emotional life, and make comparisons. They begin to compare the material body with the material bodies of others. Now, compare the emotional life. Everybody is living. And then there will be a burning why. Why that and why that and why that? What it gives this kind of character to this person, male or female. And then, is that my only expression as a self, as a human being? No. It is the way of thinking now. Or people are not thinking in the same way, and then study the union of thought and emotion, and then separate them to study them separately. It's all the time the mind. Yes, it is the mind, but it is the different expressions of the mind now. I have it as an emotion, and I have it now as thought. And what am I doing? Mixing them up, mixing water with earth, both clean and nice, to make a bad-smelling mud. That's what we are doing. Human beings, by mixing up matter, the emotions and the thoughts in a way which is not the proper way, you are creating that muddy, bad-smelling self of yours, which I call it part of the subconsciousness. We are using many times this word, human subconsciousness, but very few know what we really mean when we say subconsciousness. Subconscious way of living a man is not only vices, weaknesses, sins, and the evil way. The seeker of the truth, by observation and hard thinking, sees what we call subconsciousness, the time and place, space expression of the superconsciousness. Because it is through the subconsciousness whole you will enter in the superconscious existence and beingness. I think it's rather difficult to understand what I mean now, but you will know it after you practice what I call the right meditation, always the observation in it and hard thinking, and what I call introspection. Now again, in introspection, all the life of human beings now today, it's being out of their real self and being influenced and enchanted by the phenomena of the world outside of themselves, the phenomena of life all around us. And of course, this influences on the petty time and place kind of self, destroying the interest of this self. A fellow just sees that around us is matter. Matter in various ways of existing. Subconsciously, emotionally, he feels first of all the need to know what it is. Anything around us. We call that desire. So, a human being, a man or a woman, is under the influence and the pressure of what we call desire without knowing what is desire. Because if they knew, they wouldn't just give up and surrender to desire so easily. They should study it before. So, this kind of desire, at first of knowing what it is, we approach, we see, we touch it, We are using the other senses, not only sight. First of all, a human being doesn't care to know what he's seeing, to study that. So there are many, many things one should know. Now, touching and finding something, the beginning, all created by the holy archangels and in nature or around us, at the beginning. The desire becomes a need. The man thinks it's a need. In reality, it is not a need. But it's just an influence of having it. At first knowing it, getting knowledge of its existence, and then having it. Later, man created from matter and from what he found ready in nature, diamonds, jewels, precious stones, all are ready made, and makes something that he thinks nice for him to make, and then that thing again, because that's the nature of matter, has in it just this influence to influence people to have it. It exercises this influence, everything around us, on human beings, seeing things, to have them. At first, to know what they are, what it is, and then have them. Now, a seeker of the truth must find out what is this feeling of possessiveness, from where it comes, and where this feeling of possessiveness is leading us to a crime, maybe, sometimes, many times, stealing, or thinking probably how I will have what I call the legal ways of having it, buying it, having the means of buying it. But there are many, many things a seeker of the truth has to engage himself with, to know. First of all, what is desire? And how that feeling, let us call it feeling, is impressing and affecting me as a seeker of the truth. Now, more sober and reasonable thought now, using now what I said, observation. It's not only the thing, it is the how, which means the thought. How can I have it? What subconsciously a human being is doing, or nearly all human beings have done until now, enslaving subconsciously what I call the supersubstance of the mind, making mind and thought slave of the emotion, of that desire, to serve the desire. Instead of the mind being the master, now it is not the servant, the slave. That's what's wrong. And, of course, in the process of all these things, this petty time and place kind of personality, which is not the real self, is entangled to it. Now we find a person, a man or a woman, just in this maze, in this labyrinth of illusions. Now we see the petty time and place self-reflected in the three mirrors. Matter, the material body, things all around us, the material things, then the emotions, the feelings, and their influences on us, having it, getting it, possessing it. Then we have many, many, many things we can have. If somebody else is depriving us from that something, we call it ours. Now it's a different thing by what right we call it ours. With this feeling of possessiveness, we have also this illusion of calling things ours, as belonging to us. If somebody will deprive us of something, see, let's think. a jewel, a house, something else, what is now the reaction in that petty time and place? Personality. Now this is something we must study. That reaction, creating what? Enmity, hatred. And who are these things leading to? Leading to a seeker of the truth just to learn the ways human beings are living. We said life is common and general, but the way people are living is different. Now we have to separate these two things. Life itself and the way of living. That's life, I said, is common. Nobody cares to know what is life. Everybody cares about his way of living. But life is everlasting, continuous. The way of living is not. And especially if one entangles himself with the things which are impressing him or her, property, possessions, and all these things. And Joshua Manuel the Christ said a parable. Someone said, I had a very, very good harvest this time. He had, no, God had everything. He had everything ready. And where shall I store up all these possessions of mine? I've just built other barns, how you call it, storehouse, to collect these things of mine. And as he was thinking, he heard God saying, foolish person, tonight they ask from you to give your soul. All these things you have prepared belong to whom? Because in this parable to show that everything around us is not ourself. We care about everything, to know what it is, to be under the illusions of possessiveness. And we don't care who we are, what we are. And thinking that our self, our soul, our being is everything around us, loving that, we lose it. And hating what we are, our inner life, we gain it. If you hate the outside expression of life. He said that in Greek. Ο αγαπών την ψυχήν αυτού θέλει απολέσει αυτή και ο μισών την ψυχήν αυτού θέλει κερδίσει αυτή. This who loves his expression as himself, thinking it is his soul, will lose it. We are living now in the world of existence, in the world of the continuous change. But the one who doesn't care about it, hates all these things, doesn't like these things, will find out who is he as a soul. But how many really did understand what Joshua Manuel the Christ said at that time? Now, we know, just to some degree we know, because we make mistakes. What exists in the world or around us through the five senses. And then we know again, by study and observation, that we know these things by using the mind. What's the mind? Even if you ask a scientist today, I have put this question to certain psychiatrists. I said, what's the mind? Shoot me the head. I said, no, there is a handful of earth, of soil, which you call brains. And that's not the mind. That's not your mind. Because we will study that handful of matter, which is the brains in the head, in the skull mind, well, it is similar to all persons. Yet, the one is so different from the other. The mind of the one is so different from the mind of the other. So, we must know and understand what is the mind. Now, this is the most important thing, the most difficult thing, even for the seekers of the truth to understand. What's the mind? You have given the definition, but you must enter in the real meaning of the definitions. What did we say in the lesson? That when the absolute infinite beingness, God the Father, in it, apart from its nature of self-sufficiency, is also what I would call the pleasure of expressing itself in itself. We say that even in the prayer we are saying in the morning. So I see two different natures, the absolute infinite beingness. There are many, many more. Human beings with their human intelligence can understand all this, these two states of the absolute beingness. The absolute beingness, in its pleasure of expressing itself in itself, becomes the absolute infinite beingness, the manifestation, the logos. What concerns us is this absolute infinite beingness, because it's not easy to know what's the beingness, but we can know much what is the beingness, which is the logos humanized to Jesus Christ, to Joseph Emmanuel. We find a gate now towards the beingness. That was the aim of Joseph Emmanuel the Christ, to come down, to show himself as the gate, as a human being, to the absolute infinite beingness, his nature as El Shaddai, that means as the logos. We are calling ourselves Christians. We are not. We are far, far away from the truth concerning Christianity and the teachings of Joseph Emmanuel the Christ, the God-man. He came to show us who we are and what we are supposed to be now. So, using the mind, which we should know the nature of the mind as super substance, we are using it already subconsciously, but we have to use it consciously. They come to the point I have started. All the gods which have been created by human beings all through these years of the life on the planet were made subconsciously from the human beings, from the mind. And the mind is living. Therefore, whatever comes out of a living substance does live even now. There is no death in it. All those gods are now living as elementals in what we call it cosmic consciousness, the cosmic memory, which is again the mind, the supersubstance of the mind. And anyone who can raise his selfhood to those levels of the, call it super consciousness, will find Where? In him. No need to go in space, in any place. That is in his own nature. Whatever existed is there. Will expand his self superconsciously to these high levels of different dimensions from the material, in which now is everything. He can find everything. Living, of course living. Because what had existed, exists, but limited to its own nature, only in its own place. I'm afraid I cannot say more about this matter.